Perhaps you've always believed that peace is something that comes later, after you earn enough money, after you find the right person, after all your problems are finally solved, after life becomes stable at last. Yet year after year, something still feels missing. You reach one goal, only to worry about the next. You finally have a quiet day, but your mind refuses to be quiet. At night, your body is exhausted, yet your thoughts keep racing, replaying old conversations, reliving old mistakes, and imagining everything that could go wrong tomorrow. Some people seem to have everything others dream of, yet they live with constant anxiety. Others own almost nothing, yet there's a remarkable calmness in their eyes. The difference has never been their circumstances, it's the way they face life. More than 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosophers understood this truth. They believed that most people never find inner peace, not because the world is too chaotic, but because they're searching for peace in the wrong place. They try to control other people. They expect life to unfold exactly as they planned. They chase approval. They spend their lives pursuing desires that never truly end. And eventually, they begin to call that endless struggle normal life. But if the root of your unrest lies within the way you think, then no achievement can truly heal it. No compliment will ever last long enough. No amount of money will ever feel like enough. No relationship will ever be perfect enough. This video won't promise to make your life easier. Stoicism never made that promise. Instead, it reveals why so many people spend their entire lives searching for inner peace without ever finding it. More importantly, you'll discover how a few small shifts in perspective can change everything. When your mind is no longer pulled in every direction by fear, expectation, and things beyond your control, you'll realize that peace isn't a reward waiting at the end of the journey. It is the way you choose to walk the path itself. Stoicism was not born in peaceful rooms where people had the luxury of contemplating happiness. It was forged in the middle of war, disease, loss, betrayal, power, poverty, and death. Marcus Aurelius did not develop his philosophy in a comfortable life. He ruled the Roman Empire while facing relentless wars, devastating plagues, and the overwhelming responsibility of leading millions of people. Every day confronted him with challenges most of us can hardly imagine. Yet in Meditations, he never asked how to make the world less chaotic. Instead, he asked a far more important question. How can I keep my own mind from becoming as chaotic as the world around me? Seneca was one of the wealthiest and most influential men of his time, yet he understood that wealth, status, and comfort could never protect a person from anxiety. He famously wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Those words were true in ancient Rome, but they may be even more true today, when someone can sit safely in a quiet room while being consumed by fears about events that have never even happened. Epictetus began his life as a slave. He had no control over his social status, his possessions, or even the way others treated him. Yet he became one of history's greatest teachers of inner freedom. To Epictetus, freedom did not begin when the world offered you more choices. It began the moment you stopped handing control of your mind to things outside yourself. That is why Stoicism still matters today. Not because it makes life easier, but because it makes people stronger. It doesn't teach you to escape pain. It teaches you not to turn pain into a prison. It doesn't ask you to become emotionless. It teaches you to recognize which emotions deserve your attention and which storms are not worth following. If most people never find inner peace, Stoicism offers a simple but uncomfortable explanation. The problem isn't that they lack the conditions for peace. The problem is that they keep handing the key to their peace to things they can never truly control. Rule 1. Stop looking for peace in things that never stay. There is one paradox that most people never notice. They spend their entire lives searching for peace, yet they place it in the most unstable things imaginable. They believe they'll finally be at peace when they earn more money. Then they become afraid of losing it. They believe they'll be at peace when everyone loves and respects them. Then they live in constant fear of rejection. They believe they'll be at peace once everything goes according to plan. Then even the smallest setback becomes enough to ruin their day. It's like building a house on sand and expecting it to stand forever. Stoicism begins with a simple question. What have you placed your peace in? If your answer is money, status, relationships, appearance, achievements, or other people's approval, then you've built your inner life on things that were never meant to last. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that everything external is always changing. Reputation fades. The body grows older. The people you love may one day leave. What belongs to you today may belong to someone else tomorrow. That isn't pessimism. It's reality. The strange thing is that we easily accept impermanence in nature, yet resist it in our own lives. We know spring will eventually end. Leaves will fall. The sun will set. But when a relationship ends, a career changes, or a carefully made plan falls apart, we react as if life has somehow broken its own rules. The real source of suffering isn't change itself. It's our refusal to accept that change is part of life. The moment you attach your happiness to a particular outcome, every day becomes a waiting room. You stop living in the present. You simply wait. You wait for the promotion. You wait for the apology. You wait for life to settle down. You wait for the world to become fair. And while you're waiting, peace keeps being postponed. Epictetus once said that when you kiss someone you love, remember that they are mortal. Not because you should love them less, but because you should cherish them more. The moment you accept impermanence, gratitude naturally replaces fear. That is the difference between a peaceful person and an anxious one. One appreciates what they have. The other clings to it. And whatever you cling to eventually becomes something you're afraid to lose. So ask yourself one honest question today. If everything I've been relying on disappeared tomorrow, would I still know who I am? If the answer is no, perhaps it's time to build your life on something no one can ever take away. Your own character. Rule 2. You'll never find peace if you're always trying to control other people. There is a battle that millions of people fight every single day. A battle that no one ever wins. The battle to control other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions. You want your family to understand you. You want your coworkers to be fair. You want the person who hurt you to regret what they did. You want everyone to recognize your worth. On the surface, those desires seem completely reasonable. But Stoicism asks a difficult question. When did you decide that your peace depended on someone else changing? That is the trap most people fall into. They don't just live their own lives. They try to live everyone else's as well. They constantly replay conversations in their minds, wondering what they should have said to be understood. They rehearse ways to earn approval. They imagine the perfect response that would finally make someone else feel guilty. As a result, even when they're alone, their minds are still occupied by other people. Epictetus taught that life consists of two kinds of things, those within your control and those outside it. The tragedy is that most people devote nearly all their energy to the second category. They try to control how others see them. They try to control the future. They try to control outcomes. Some even try to control things that have already happened. It's like trying to hold on to a flowing river with your bare hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. The harder you try to force people to change, the more peace you lose. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people act according to what they believe is right at the time. That doesn't mean they're always right. It simply means you cannot force someone else to see the world through your eyes. You can explain. You can offer advice. You can set healthy boundaries. But you cannot control another person's mind. Much of our suffering doesn't come from what people do. It comes from refusing to accept that they have the freedom to be who they choose to be. Perhaps they will never apologize. Perhaps they will never understand you. Perhaps they will continue to judge you unfairly. That reality is painful. But the moment you stop waiting for them to change is the moment you begin taking your own life back. That isn't surrender. It's wisdom. Seneca wrote that true strength doesn't belong to the person who wins every argument. It belongs to the one who refuses to let another person's foolishness control their peace of mind. Take an honest look at your day. How many times did your emotions change because of a glance, a message, a comment, or someone's opinion? If the answer is too many, then someone else has been holding the steering wheel of your emotional life. Stoicism doesn't ask you to stop caring about people. It simply reminds you that inner peace cannot exist as long as the remote control to your emotions remains in someone else's hands. The day you stop trying to control the world is the day you finally begin mastering yourself. Rule 3. The more you resist reality, the more peace you lose. There is one habit almost everyone shares. We argue with what has already happened. If only I had said something different. If only I had taken that job. If only they hadn't betrayed me. If only life had been fair. On the surface, these seem like harmless thoughts. But in reality, they are a battle against the past. And it is a battle you can never win. Strangely enough, we accept countless laws of nature without question. No one gets angry because the sun sets. No one complains that winter is cold. No one expects time to move backward. Yet when something painful happens in our own lives, we behave as though reality itself has made a mistake. We suffer not only because of what happened, we suffer because we refuse to accept that it happened. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that a blazing fire turns everything thrown into it into fuel. That is exactly how a disciplined mind responds to adversity. It doesn't deny reality. It uses reality. A failure becomes a lesson. A betrayal becomes an opportunity to understand people more clearly. A loss becomes a reminder to cherish what still remains. But none of that can happen until you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What can I do with this now?" That is the difference between someone trapped in the past and someone transformed by it. Seneca wrote that fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. He wasn't telling us to become passive. He was reminding us to accept reality before trying to shape the future. After all, you cannot build a new house while standing in the ruins of the old one, complaining that it collapsed. Some people spend 10 years trying to heal, not because their wounds are too deep, but because they spend those 10 years refusing to accept that the wound exists. The moment you accept reality is not the moment you become weaker. It is the moment you stop wasting energy on what can never be changed. And only then do you have the strength to change what still lies within your control. If there is a painful event that still weighs heavily on your heart today, don't ask why life treated you this way. Ask yourself a different question. What kind of person will I become because of this? That is the question Stoicism always invites us to ask. Not how to escape reality, but how to grow through it. If you've ever experienced a moment that completely changed the way you see life, leave a comment saying, "I accept." Sometimes a simple commitment is the first step toward letting go of the battle you've been fighting with the past. Rule 4. You can't find peace if you've never truly lived in the present. If someone asked whether you truly lived yesterday, you might need a few moments to think before answering. Not because yesterday didn't exist, but because your mind was probably somewhere else. While you're working, you're thinking about the weekend. When the weekend finally arrives, you're already worrying about Monday. While you're eating, you're scrolling through your phone. While you're with your family, you're thinking about work. And when you finally lie down to sleep, your mind starts replaying tomorrow before it has even arrived. Your body is always in one place, but your mind is somewhere else. That is why so many people spend decades alive without ever truly experiencing life. They don't live it, they simply pass through it. Stoicism teaches that the present moment is the only time you ever truly possess. The past is no longer yours. The future has never been yours. Yet most people spend almost all of their mental energy on those two places. They regret what cannot be changed. They fear what has not yet happened. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that each person lives only in the present moment. Everything else has either disappeared or has yet to exist. That wasn't just a philosophical idea. It was a way of living. Think about the last time you looked up at the sky without reaching for your phone. The last time you drank a cup of coffee without thinking about work. The last time you took a walk without being dragged around by 100 different thoughts. For many people, it's been a very long time. Not because life has become busier, but because the mind has developed the habit of escaping the present. It keeps whispering the same lie. Peace is waiting somewhere ahead. Just finish one more project. Earn a little more money. Solve one more problem. But the moment you reach that goal, your mind quietly invents another one. The cycle never ends. Seneca warned that people who are always preparing to live rarely end up living it all. Those words describe modern life with remarkable accuracy. We spend so much time preparing for tomorrow that we forget today is our life. Stoicism doesn't tell you to stop planning for the future. It simply reminds you not to sacrifice the present for a future you are never guaranteed to see. Every day is part of your life. Not a rehearsal, not a waiting room, not the introduction. This is your life. The moment you give your full attention to what you're doing right now, even the simplest moments begin to feel different. A quiet breakfast, a meaningful conversation, a peaceful morning, a cool breeze against your face. Those moments have always been there. Your mind has simply been too busy to notice them. Perhaps peace was never missing. Perhaps you've just been absent from the only place it has ever existed, the present moment. Rule 5. The more you want, the harder peace becomes. There is a promise modern life keeps making to us. Just one more thing, and you'll finally be happy. A little more money, a better opportunity, a nicer house, a bigger achievement, more recognition. At first, that promise sounds perfectly reasonable. Ambition is not the enemy. It pushes people to grow. It inspires us to build, create, and improve. But Stoicism warns that there comes a point when ambition no longer serves you. Instead, you begin serving it. You no longer work because your work has meaning. You work because you're afraid of falling behind. You no longer learn because you love knowledge. You learn because you fear being less successful than someone else. You stop enjoying what you've achieved. You barely celebrate one milestone before chasing the next. That is why so many successful people still feel empty. Not because they lack accomplishments, but because their minds have never learned the meaning of enough. Seneca once wrote that the poorest person is not the one who owns the least. It is the one who endlessly craves more. He wasn't telling us to abandon our goals. He was reminding us that when desire grows faster than gratitude, nothing will ever satisfy us. Even if we gained the whole world, we would still feel incomplete. Think about a small child. A single falling leaf can capture their attention. A gentle rain can fill them with wonder. But somewhere along the way, we lose that ability. Not because life becomes less beautiful, but because our standards for happiness become impossibly high. We begin measuring the value of life by extraordinary moments. Yet peace is usually found in ordinary ones. Marcus Aurelius began each day with gratitude, not for his power as emperor, but for the simple gift of being alive, breathing, thinking clearly, and having another opportunity to live with virtue. That perspective is worth remembering. If one of the most powerful men in history chose to appreciate life's simplest blessings, why do we believe happiness only arrives after achieving something greater? Stoicism doesn't ask you to stop pursuing your goals. Keep growing, keep building, keep striving for meaningful success, but don't turn your entire life into a destination that keeps moving farther away every time you get closer. Because if you only allow yourself to be happy after your next achievement, you'll spend your entire life postponing peace. Tomorrow, next month, next year. And one day you'll look back and realize that while you were chasing a better life, you forgot to live the one you already had. Contentment doesn't begin when you possess more. It begins the moment you recognize that what you already have is worthy of gratitude. That isn't weakness. It isn't a lack of ambition. It's the freedom that comes when your mind is no longer enslaved by endless desire. Rule 6. You can never be at peace while living someone else's life. There is one habit that drains the human mind more than almost anything else: comparison. You open your phone and see someone else's success, their happiness, their wealth, their beautiful family, the places they've traveled. In just a few minutes, your own life suddenly feels smaller. Not because it actually became worse, but because you've used someone else's life as the standard for judging your own. Stoicism would call this a mistake in perception. You're comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to the highlight reel someone else chose to show the world. Long before social media existed, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself never to waste time worrying about what other people were doing, thinking, or achieving. Not because people don't matter, but because every minute spent staring at someone else's path is a minute taken away from your own. Every person carries a different story, a different pace, different circumstances, different lessons. No one begins life from the same starting line. So why would you measure your journey with someone else's ruler? Some people succeed at 20. Others discover purpose at 50. Some lose everything before rebuilding their lives. Others have never failed, and therefore have never truly grown. If you judge only by outcomes, there will always be someone ahead of you. But when you look at the journey instead of the destination, you begin to understand that every life unfolds according to its own timing. Epictetus once said that if you want to make progress, you must be willing to appear foolish in matters that don't truly matter. That is far more difficult than it sounds. Human beings naturally crave approval. We want to be admired, recognized, respected. But the moment your worth depends on those things, you surrender your freedom. The day you begin living to impress other people is the day you hand them control over your peace of mind. Stoicism doesn't tell you to stop learning from people who are ahead of you. Learn from them. Observe them. Be inspired by them. But never let admiration turn into self-contempt. Instead of asking, "Why am I not like them?" ask yourself, "Am I becoming better than the person I was yesterday?" That is the only comparison that leads to lasting growth. The only competition truly worth winning is not against millions of strangers. It's against the version of yourself you were yesterday. If you improve just a little each day, you'll eventually look back and realize how far you've come. Not because you outran everyone else, but because you stopped looking sideways and kept walking your own path. If this lesson reminds you how often comparison has stolen your joy, leave a comment saying, "My path." Let it be a promise to yourself that from today forward, your focus will be on your own journey, not anyone else's. Rule 7. Forgiveness doesn't set them free. It sets you free. There are people who left your life years ago, yet somehow, they still live in your mind every single day. A cruel remark, a betrayal, a moment of humiliation, someone who wounded you deeply. The event ended long ago, but every time you remember it, the pain feels just as real as it did the first day. What does that tell you? It tells you that the other person hurt you once, but you've been hurting yourself over that same moment hundreds, perhaps thousands of times ever since. Stoicism never denies that people can do terrible things. Marcus Aurelius dealt with selfishness, betrayal, arrogance, and dishonesty throughout his life. Even within his own court, he didn't live among ideal people. He lived among people very much like those we encounter today. Yet instead of allowing bitterness to rule his mind, he reminded himself that people act according to the level of understanding and character they possess. That doesn't make their actions right, but it does prevent their actions from continuing to rule your life. Many people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it means forgetting, pretending nothing happened, accepting mistreatment. It doesn't. Forgiveness doesn't require you to trust the person again. It doesn't require you to invite them back into your life. It doesn't ask you to tolerate disrespect. And it certainly doesn't ask you to abandon healthy boundaries. Forgiveness means only one thing. You choose not to let the past keep renting space in your mind without paying for it. Seneca once compared anger to holding a burning piece of coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. The first person to be burned is always you. Resentment is exhausting. It keeps replaying old conversations. It keeps rewriting arguments that are already over. It keeps hoping someone else will finally suffer enough to make your pain feel justified. Meanwhile, that person may have moved on with their life years ago. You are the one still carrying the weight. Forgiveness cannot rewrite the past, but it can transform the person carrying that past. And that person is you. Remember this. You don't have to win every conflict life brings you. You simply have to refuse to let any conflict destroy your inner peace. Some victories cost far too much. If winning an argument means losing years of peace, then the price is simply too high. So if there is still someone whose name makes your heart feel heavy, don't ask whether they deserve your forgiveness. Ask whether your own mind deserves to be free. Because in the end, forgiveness is never the gift you give to someone else. It is the gift you finally give back to yourself. Rule 8. Stop trying to prove your worth to everyone. There is a race that countless people spend their entire lives running. The problem is, the finish line doesn't exist. It's the endless effort to prove that you're good enough, successful enough, smart enough, important enough, worthy of respect. When you're young, you try to prove yourself to your parents. At work, you try to prove yourself to your colleagues. As you become more successful, you try to prove yourself to society. Eventually, even when no one is judging you, you begin imagining an audience that isn't there. You start choosing careers, buying possessions, building an image, and even making life-changing decisions just to earn someone else's approval. The problem is this: the more you live to be accepted, the less ownership you have over your own worth. Stoicism would call this one of the most subtle forms of slavery. The chains aren't around your wrists, they're wrapped around your mind. Epictetus once said that if you want to grow, you must be willing to be thought foolish in matters that don't truly matter. That is incredibly difficult. From childhood, we're taught to chase praise, good grades, awards, titles, recognition. Slowly, we begin believing that our value exists in other people's opinions. But think about what that really means. If 10 people praise you today, you feel confident. Tomorrow only 3 people do, and you begin doubting yourself. A week later, one stranger criticizes you, and suddenly your entire day is ruined. What does that reveal? It reveals that you don't truly own your self-worth. You're borrowing it from other people, and anything you borrow can always be taken back. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most powerful men on earth. Yet he constantly reminded himself that fame is nothing more than sound passing through other people's mouths. Today, they applaud you. Tomorrow, they'll applaud someone else. If you build your identity on their applause, you'll collapse the moment the applause stops. Stoicism doesn't tell you to reject appreciation. If people recognize your work, accept it with gratitude. But never allow their approval to become the fuel your soul depends on. Because one day, the applause will fade. And when that moment comes, only one question will matter. Not, what do people think about me? But, am I living according to the values I truly believe in? If the answer is yes, then you've built your life on a foundation that no praise and no criticism can ever destroy. That is the kind of peace Stoicism points us toward. Not the peace that comes from being admired by the world, but the peace that comes from no longer needing the world to tell you who you are. Rule 9. Peace doesn't come when life becomes quiet. It comes when your mind stops reacting to everything. Most people believe that what steals their peace are the major events in life. A painful breakup, losing a job, a devastating failure. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice something different. Your energy is rarely drained by life's biggest moments. It's worn away by hundreds of tiny reactions every single day. A careless comment, a message left unanswered, someone cutting you off in traffic, a plan changing at the last minute. None of these moments seem significant on their own. Yet your mind reacts to every one of them. By the end of the day, you're not exhausted because life is difficult. You're exhausted because your reactions never stop. This is one of Stoicism's greatest lessons. Between what happens and how you respond, there is always a space. And within that space lies your freedom. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the judgments they make about those events. Someone rejects you. That is a fact. But "I'm not good enough" is only your interpretation. A plan falls apart. That is a fact. But "life is always against me" is a story your mind creates. Much of our suffering doesn't come from reality. It comes from the meaning we attach to reality. Marcus Aurelius practiced a simple habit whenever something unpleasant happened. He would quietly ask himself, "Is this the event itself? Or simply the way I'm choosing to see it?" That single question creates enough distance for wisdom to enter. It slows anger, softens anxiety, and gives reason the chance to speak before emotion takes over. A peaceful person isn't someone who never gets angry. It's someone who refuses to let anger make their decisions. A peaceful person isn't someone who never feels sadness. It's someone who refuses to let sadness become a permanent home. Stoicism doesn't ask you to stop feeling. It asks you to stop surrendering your life to every feeling that passes through you. It doesn't teach you to become a stone. It teaches you to become the captain of your own ship. The waves will still come. The wind will still change. Storms will still appear without warning. But you don't have to let every wave determine your direction. The next time something provokes you, don't react immediately. Pause. Take one slow breath. Then ask yourself, is this really worth losing my peace over? Most of the time, the answer will be no. If you want to build a calmer mind, leave a comment saying, "Stay calm." Let those 2 words become a daily reminder that real strength isn't found in reacting quickly. It's found in choosing your response wisely. Rule 10. Inner peace is not the destination. It is the way you live every day. If the entire philosophy of Stoicism could be distilled into a single lesson, it would be this: don't wait for life to become perfect before giving yourself permission to be at peace, because that day will never come. There will always be another problem to solve, another uncertainty to face, another disappointment to overcome, another person who lets you down, another plan that doesn't unfold the way you hoped. And sooner or later, everything you love will change. If your peace depends on all of those things disappearing, then you're chasing something impossible. That is why so many people spend their lives searching for peace, only to die without ever experiencing it. They keep telling themselves the same story. I'll finally relax after I get through this. Once this difficult season is over, everything will be different. But life doesn't work that way. Life isn't a series of problems that eventually ends in permanent happiness. It is an endless flow of challenges, opportunities, losses, victories, and change. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than almost anyone. He didn't wait for the wars to end before practicing Stoicism. He didn't wait for the empire to become stable. He didn't wait for people to become loyal. He didn't wait until the pressure disappeared. He practiced peace in the middle of uncertainty. That is why Meditations continues to inspire people nearly 2,000 years later. It wasn't written for a perfect world. It was written for imperfect people living in an unpredictable one, just like us. When this video ends, your life probably won't change overnight. Tomorrow, you'll still wake up to responsibilities. You'll still meet difficult people. Some of your plans will still fail. There will still be moments of loneliness, disappointment, and uncertainty. But one thing can change immediately: the way you see those experiences. You can continue treating every hardship as proof that life is against you, or you can begin seeing each challenge as an opportunity to strengthen the very qualities Stoicism values most: calmness, self-discipline, gratitude, courage, wisdom. In the end, the quality of your life is not determined by how many storms you avoid. It is determined by the person you become as you walk through them. A peaceful mind is not built on easy days. It is built on the days when you choose patience, even though anger feels justified. When you choose kindness, even though bitterness seems easier. When you choose to move forward, even though giving up feels tempting. That is the victory Stoicism has always pointed toward. Not victory over the world, but victory over yourself. And when you finally understand that, you realize something beautifully simple. Inner peace was never waiting at the end of the road. It has always been present in every step taken by the person who knows where they're going, understands what is worth holding on to, and has the wisdom to let go of what isn't. If there is one message Stoicism leaves us with after all these lessons, it is this: don't spend your entire life waiting for the perfect moment before allowing yourself to experience peace. Because peace is not a reward reserved for people with easy lives. It is the result of a choice you make every single day. The choice to focus on what you can control. The choice to accept what you cannot change. And the choice to live according to your own values rather than the expectations of the world. The world will never become completely quiet. People will continue to change. Unexpected challenges will continue to appear. Some plans will succeed. Others will fail. That is simply the nature of life. But none of those things have the power to steal your peace unless you hand that power over to them. Real change rarely begins with dramatic moments. It begins with small decisions repeated consistently. One calmer response, one wiser thought, one act of gratitude, one moment of patience, one choice to let go instead of holding on. Each of those choices becomes another brick in the foundation of an inner peace that no one can take away from you. That is the freedom the Stoics spent their lives talking about. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom from becoming a prisoner of every difficulty you face. If this video helped you see your life from a different perspective, and you want to continue exploring the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us for future journeys into the philosophy that has guided resilient minds for centuries. And remember this, success may earn you admiration from the world, but only inner peace will allow you to admire the person you become. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not building a life that impresses everyone else. It is building a mind that remains steady, no matter what life places in your path.